the confrontation between China and the U.S. rather than it's the fundamental reason.
I think the COVID pandemic's definitely worsened U.S.-China relations. The feeling is very much in the United States that China was not open about the initial outbreak of the virus, about how it occurred, about the early months of the virus. There is I would say, an overwhelming view in the United States that China was not transparent about all aspects of the virus.
Since the COVID pandemic, there is an emerging view in China that after millions of infections and more than 500,000 deaths in the US, the beacon of democracy and competency is indeed in its inevitable decline, and China's own system is actually superior at times of crisis, as in the 2008 financial crash when Beijing's $1 trillion stimulus package helped the global recovery. Professor Yan of Tsinghua University.
So personally, I 100% sure that the rise of China will continue, and the relative decline of the U.S. and it's difficult to be returned. And even Biden's leadership is much better than Trump's leadership, but because the U.S. has already dramatically divided politically by Trump's administration, so it's very difficult for Biden to resume Americans' energy within 4 years.
I think that democracies will continue to flourish. As in all democracies, they're complicated systems, they're different viewpoints. There's often no one way to solve a problem, and democracies, that is always an issue. Nonetheless, in the end, democracies have proven to be successful societies in which people can express their frustrations through a political system over time.
Nadia Shadlow. And that clash of political systems can be seen most clearly in arguments over human rights. There is outrage in Washington over Hong Kong and Xinjiang, both part of China's own territory, and both led each side to impose sanctions on one another.
Human rights will play an important role in the U.S.-China relationship and also with U.S. allies and partners vis-a-vis China. I think it will continue to be a point of contention in the U.S.-China relationship. President Biden has continued President Trump's initial calling of the situation in Xinjiang as genocide, which is important politically overall as well, and it applies political pressure.
China is not perfect. China still has human rights issues.
This is Wang Huiyao in Beijing. He was a teenager when Kissinger visited China in the summer of 1971. China's entry into the international system also changed his life. He then went on to be educated in Canada and the UK. In 2015, he was appointed by the Chinese premier as a counselor for the State Council. As you can tell, his framing of human rights is very different from those in the US.
But just like U.S. have that too, the Black Lives Matters and things like that, and we see that happening, demonstration all over the U.S. last year. Many people died and the gunshots and things like that. So there's people, U.S. public should really put its own house in order before they can really teach others lessons. I think that era is probably should not be really stretched too long.
Here's Henry Kissinger speaking last year on the subject.
There are differences on the issue of human rights, and it is important for each side to understand the sensitivities of the other, and not necessarily to solve the problem, but to alleviate it to a point where no further progress is possible.
Progress, perhaps. Yet it seems to me that some foreign policy leads in both Beijing and Washington see the Sino-US competition as ultimately a test of different systems. But how do we understand the nature of power competition between the two? And where would this battle for supremacy lead us to?
Back in late 2019, I asked Dr. Kissinger at a conference in Beijing if we were in Cold War II, only this time with the Chinese rather than the Russians as the other side, and he replied, we're in the foothills of a Cold War.
This is Neil Ferguson, historian and Henry Kissinger's biographer.
And I was quite startled by that. It revealed quite a shift in his thinking. At the beginning of Trump's administration in 2017, he saw some possibility of, in fact, improving relations between the US and China and between the US and Russia, and it didn't happen. It didn't happen, and indeed things went in really a very different direction from the one that he would have preferred. As Trump, first with tariffs, then with other measures, launched a trade war and a tech war. Vice President Pence raised the rhetorical level in his Hudson Institute speech in October of 2018.
Our message to China's rulers is this president will not back down.
And that was the moment in which I thought, okay, this is a Cold War, because we're no longer just talking about tariffs, we're talking about ideology, we're talking about geopolitics.
China's president Xi Jinping specifically against
So how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, thank you. Switch your license here, please. I assume you're Walter, are you?
Yes.
Just grab your license, please. Thank you. State your full name
Yes.
and your address, please. Callum,
Yes.
what are you doing in this area?
I'm just going on a road. I thought it was open.
No, mate, no.
Oh, sorry.
So you're not allowed to travel any further than 25 k's from home. You can't be in regional Victoria.
I was actually going to Phillip Islands.
That's regional Victoria, so
Sorry, so I'll just go UE then.
yeah, that's fine, mate. No worries. Just give you a bit of a warning, that's all. So just stay back. Yeah.
Sorry. Then I'll just do UE in the next.
And just do your turn and head back home, yeah.
So
Alright.
I didn't know. I just thought it was open. Like I was going to the caves actually.
It's all right, mate. Have a
All
good
right.
day.
Sorry.